Anita Uzbey, the former MP of Microsoft World Africa, himself an erudite industry intellectual and passionate marketer. I will limit myself just to mere welcoming the participants of this summit to this occasion. I want to welcome you all. Permit me therefore to bring to your attention some concerns raised by some global industry thought leaders on the issue of post-digital world. These concerns were raised as a result of the hypothetical question: will we really live in a post-digital age, but are we likely to experience a post-digital age? In his own history, Jonathan Rubicon chairman and CEO David Sebu made case that apart from being post-digital, we are only at the beginning of being digital, and that pressure just can be found everywhere. There has been different interpretations of the phrase post-digital, while the guardian of London rights welcome to the post-digital world and accelerating return to civility. Adage, a popular industry journal, talks about how the post-digital era brings trace of wealth to real world. The law asks, the post-digital age is your enterprise ready? And definitely yes, we have certainly entered the post-digital era. The question that majority of attendees of this virtual summit will like our eminent guest speaker and a galaxy of cerebral panelists to provide insights into today is how to make their businesses future fit. We are eager and ready to drink from the fountain of this galaxy of speakers that will be carefully assembled to give justice to this all important thing. I'm very sure we shall be all educated and informed about this topic. I enjoy you all to sit back and journey with us on this historic virtual summit. Welcome and thanks for listening. Thanks, Madam Fellow.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Jai. Thank you so much. Like you said, this is not time to let our guards down. And obviously, post-digital age, like you said, is your enterprise ready? So are we ready? Are our different enterprises ready for the post-digital age? Now, before we will be bringing on Mr. Andisa Subani. My apologies, you would have to help us to pronounce that correctly. But Mr. Andisa Subani's his profile is actually wonderful. So what I've done is just try to take some headlines of some of the things that he has told us about himself. So Mr. Andisa is an Afro-optimist. He's a strategist, he's a brand activist, he's an author, and he's also a board member. He says to us that his greatest legacy, one of the things that he's most proud of, is being a parent. He's also most proud of some of the global experiences that he has created for creating global award-winning sporting innovation, Pan-Africa brand and culture strategy experience. He's also the co-author of Brand Management Textbook. Currently, as we speak, Mr. Andisa Subani is the head marketing strategy planning and Africa marketing for Old Mutual Limited. He's worked in a whole lot of places, like being a director at the Humankind Group. He's also been the marketing and communications director at Microsoft South Africa. He has also been the head group brand and sponsorship at Standard Bank Groups. He's also worked as national channel manager with Cell C and a host of other things. His strengths, like he says to us, is his African marketing understanding, strategic development, innovation, customer experience, brand management, cultural strategy, and digital marketing. So who else but him to be speaking to us today on future fitting our businesses in the post-digital age. So welcome, Mr. Andisa Nsubani.
A very good morning, and thank you very much for that warm welcome to you, and good morning to everybody. It is always a pleasure to be speaking to all of you today. If I can just ask the team to enable my ability to share my screen, so I can share the screen. Just give me access so I can share the screen to put up a presentation that can really just stimulate thoughts about where we are now and what we need to do as we move beyond COVID. So if they can just enable me to share my screen, just give me rights, hosting rights. and make me the host so I can share my screen and talk you through the presentation. If the team can just give me rights. Doshasa, if you can just give me rights to host the screen, that would be great.
You can share now, sir.
It's saying, if you make me the host, I'll be able to share.
Okay.
This technology in this digital era, as you can see, is very important, but let's just try and make sure that it works now. Yes. All right. Let's see now. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay, so good morning and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. It's always a pleasure to talk to fellow communicators, marketers, brand activists, and business partners in this very important moment. I'm truly honored to be speaking to you today and to be sharing some thoughts and insights around where we are. This is really a very important moment for us as a community to be thinking very deeply about where we are, what has happened this year, and what it means for all of us moving forward. And so really this is the beginning of a journey that I want to plant a seed in your minds today and have us think together about the future and where we will go beyond COVID. So a little bit about myself. I am a family man, very passionate about the continent. I've been to 34 countries on the continent. I've co-authored a brand management textbook. I'm passionate about innovation. I speak a lot about this beautiful continent of ours and very specifically around the role that we need to play on the global stage. I think there's so many wonderful things that are happening on the continent that aren't happening anywhere else in the world. And I think those stories need to be told and the innovations need to be told, as this truly is the lost frontier in terms of growth opportunities across the globe. I'm also very passionate about purpose and meaning and making sure that we are all playing our part in terms of delivering on our individual purpose, but also from a business perspective as it relates to that. I've had the pleasure of working on some fantastic brands in my career and been able to make a contribution to the growth of those brands across multiple industries and across multiple and different parts of the African continent. And so I really am passionate about the continent, where we are, and what this great opportunity holds for us in terms of the future. But I think there can be no doubt about the importance of this moment and what has happened this year, specifically related to the impact of COVID-19 for all of us, globally, on the continent. And it is such a big moment because I think that the effects and the impact of COVID will be felt for generations to come. And so I do want us this morning to think very deeply about why this moment is so important for all of us. And being somebody who is passionate about people, I think that the starting point, certainly for me, is that at an individual level, if we have all not taken the opportunity to think about the gift that COVID has given us, to think about the things that are important to us at a personal level, I think we've certainly missed the greatest opportunity to reset our lives. Because COVID has really made us think about what are the things that are important? What were the things that we were spending our time on before this pandemic hit us? And are we really, truly living a life of purpose that can add value to other of our people and citizens across the countries where we are and the continent at large. And so this is a big moment for us to have deep reflection on what the world will look like as we move forward and the role that we will play within it. So at a personal level, I think we need to really think about what this moment is meaning for all of us. I think on a brand level, it's also a very important moment. Just yesterday, Brand Finance released their inaugural top 150 most valuable brands on the African continent. And it's a very interesting read, so please do go onto the Brand Finance website and download a copy. I'm pleased to have seen that my own company, Old Mutual, was ranked the 5th most valuable brand on the continent with strong growth from 8th position last year. But we have the top 150 most valuable brands on the continent reflected in that report that was released yesterday, with exciting spectrum of brands across multiple industries in the top 50 across different geographies. What is most interesting, though, is that the top 150 brands have lost an estimated $60 billion in value as a consequence of COVID-19. And that is quite significant to see an erosion of brand equity across the piece, across all markets, as a consequence of COVID-19. And this really speaks to the impact that this has had across the board in all the markets on brands, on value, but it also signals that there's going to be quite a difficult path to regain customers' trust in brands and in the role that brands play in society at large. And so the big moment here is also for us to reflect on what will be our path in terms of how we recover the equity and trust in brands as we move forward, because as you may know, a brand is our promise to the market where we operate, and we certainly need to do a lot of work to make sure that the impact of brands and the positive influence that it can have on communities and societies is placed. I think at this moment, I'd also like to take an opportunity to recognize that it does fall upon every generation to make sure that we deal with injustice. And certainly there can be no tolerance for any type of injustice anywhere. And I think given where we are as a community and given that the power has shifted back to the people and back to the citizens, we certainly are in support of injustice wherever it may appear, and want to make sure that we play our role to ensure that injustice and the will of the people is kind of heard. And I think this is a wonderful moment as we think about the impact of COVID-19, the positive effects that we want to have in society. And so I certainly want to give nod to the movement of EndSARS around police brutality, specifically because we want to make sure that everybody deserves to live in a society where there is peace, where there is protection of children, women, and vulnerable people in all of our societies. And so certainly there is a new spring that is dawning across the globe to make sure that we as a generation stand up for what is right and make sure that the protection of all the things that are important to us as humans is really made sure it's realized. And we do take the world forward in terms of stewarding things that are important to us across the entire continent. And so 2020 has also been termed as the year of the great pause. Certainly from a marketing perspective, what we have seen is that a lot of brands have pulled back on marketing investment as a consequence of COVID, because people have been on lockdown, there hasn't been much activity. And there's much debate about what brands should do in times of difficulty like this. Do brands pull back on investment? Do brands actually invest more during these difficult times? And these are some of the questions that people have struggled with. And certainly as the lifting of restrictions lifts across all countries on the continent, we are seeing brands gearing up to get ready for big impact in the last 3 months of this year. And I think there will be a big battle for regaining positive share in the minds of people as we move towards the end of this year, but also trying to stimulate positive momentum and creating that optimism as we move towards 2021. But I think the struggle will be about what brands communicate and how they communicate as we move into 2021. And there certainly have been different points of view around what the future holds for us, with many consultants talking about a new normal or the next normal, as it were, and that everything will change. And in terms of how brands are perceived and how businesses operate. And there's other consultants who talk about this being absolute nonsense. So there is this polarized view of what the future will hold for all of us as things lift, as lockdown lifts, and as we start to enter this world where we are not entirely post-COVID, but living alongside COVID, and we enter a new chapter in terms of how we move forward as a society, as countries, and as the continent at large. But certainly in the debate is this thing about what do brands do? Do brands kind of focus on preserving and protecting business and supporting the slowdown in terms of not necessarily going out and spending money when businesses aren't doing well? Or do brands accelerate and put into sharp focus their investment and build big halos so that when it is post-COVID, as it were, they can have that brand effect and that brand halo? And this is what brands have been struggling with. Do you slow down or do you increase investment, and what do you do? And it certainly is a big conundrum because certainly as marketers, we want to be sensitive to where our businesses are at. And certainly when we look at across multiple industries, there has been significant slowdown in business performance across multiple sectors and across brands that have traditionally delivered sterling performances. And quite clearly, COVID impact has been significant. But certainly for me, whichever side of the fence you may sit on slowing down your investment or accelerating your investment, one thing is very clear, and that is we cannot continue to do what we've always done. We've got to make sure that we reshift and refocus the role of brands in society and how we execute marketing across the markets where we operate. One thing is clear, that brands that are going to lead are those brands that deliver tangible value, that help to resolve cultural and social tensions in society, and respond to people's lived experiences. Brands have got to be connected to the lived experiences of people. Too often, brands are disconnected with very generic marketing messages that they're putting out there, very generic and untargeted marketing to customers. And what we've got to do now is to be truly connected to the lived experiences of people. And certainly COVID has really brought out those societal and economic realities that people are going through. Brands have got to be connected to the anxieties that people face and to make sure that we play a role in re-energizing, reconnecting, and making sure that we create that sense of optimism in terms of the future, because it has been a very difficult moment, and I certainly believe we're not out of the woods yet. We have seen second waves of the pandemic hitting multiple markets, and I think we need to remain vigilant, but stay truly connected to the lived experiences of people across the board. And so moving forward, it's not really about understanding trends, understanding foresight, because we've all got it wrong, right? Nobody could have predicted COVID-19. In fact, a lot of the scientists had predicted, but nobody was listening, But for many of us, none of us had ever seen the potential impact that this pandemic would have and would create. And so for me, it's less about trends, but more about values. We're moving into a world where we have to be truly connected to what people care about, to what people value and hold dear, because times change, but the things that matter to people seldom do. Family, relationships, wanting the best for your children, wanting a brighter future, and really making sure we're embedding and placing brands in the context of values and what people care about is going to be a critical piece for brands that lead as we move forward. And certainly at the heart of this is about creating this notion and concept of shared value. And shared value is about making sure that businesses don't just look at profits. Businesses don't just look at economic opportunities, that we actually start by understanding what the societal issues are and developing business models that help us to address social issues. Because when you can get social value and economic value simultaneously, you help to move the continent forward. And I will share a little bit of insight around shared value a little bit in the presentation. And so certainly people are looking for, they want to feel connected. They want to feel valued. And they don't want almost this frivolous discounts, promotions. They really want, and creativity is going to play such an important role moving forward. The role of content, digital first, everybody's been online, driven by COVID, which has been a significant impact across the board. And so we've got to really make sure that we focus on creating that piece going forward. Certainly from an Old Mutual perspective, our approach has been that we've got to make sure that we leverage this time to deliver on our purpose. Please, can you put yourselves on mute? There's a noise in the background. Can you mute somebody, please? Thank you. If someone can just mute, yeah. So I was saying that from an Old Mutual perspective, being in the insurance space, we certainly have held the view that there has never been a bigger moment for us to deliver on our purpose than now. This is the time for companies like ours to really make sure that we deliver on what we say. In fact, all brands. COVID-19 has been the perfect opportunity for brands to actually practice what they preach. And as a business that's been on the continent for 175 years, it was very important for us to play a meaningful role to respond in the battle against COVID-19. And we've done a number of things across making sure we support governments in communicating WHO standards, washing hands, all of those types of things, making sure that we support across food and nutrition, which has been a significant issue, healthcare, providing PPEs, and also doing a lot of work around education across all the markets where we operate. We've been supplying testing kits across many markets because that's quite important to help us to understand where we are. And so the role and the contribution we've played, I think certainly has demonstrated that we are a brand that is aligned to the realities and lived experiences of people. And certainly our view is that people will look back at this moment across all the markets on the continent, and they will think about the brands and businesses that did something. And certainly we wanted to make sure that we were one of those brands that were clearly seen to have taken a point of view and taken a strong point of view around the things that we're going to do. And one of the big decisions that we made was that we will focus on frontline workers, the people that are actually going towards the danger each and every day. And we put out a healthcare cover across multiple markets in support of those healthcare workers who are putting their lives at risk for us. And that was really, really important for us across multiple geographies. In Nigeria, specifically in partnership with the Lagos State Ministry of Education, We supported virtual learning. As you know, many people that were in lockdown at home couldn't attend school, those vulnerable communities. And we basically supplied over 20,000 radios to make sure that you can still deliver education via those radio sets. And we're also doing a number of things together with the Ministry of Education to support financial education for teachers, but also digital and access to digital across the piece. So across all the markets where we operate, we certainly have wanted to play a meaningful role in terms of how we drive that. We've also had to innovate around some of our solutions and how we deliver propositions in the digital world and in the age of COVID-19 and supporting the call for people to stay at home. And I want to just play a short thing for you to see in terms of some of that that we've done. So this is an example in our East Africa business where we have a healthcare business. And what we've done is we launched what we call Meds on Wheels, where we fully understood that people have to stay at home and we have to make sure that people stay at home under lockdown. But we understood that people are vulnerable and they can't make it to see a doctor to get their medicine. And so we provided telemedicine services, which I thought were very, very important for us to do. And we got people on bikes to deliver medicine to people. But we also fully understood that during this period, people are also psychologically in a very difficult place psychologically. And so telecounseling was also very important for us to deliver to customers and people across those markets. So really thinking about things that we need to do to help in the societies where we operate. And certainly for us, thinking about what needs to happen is disruption is going to be very important. And COVID has really made us think about business models, viability, and really what will work going forward. Because if you're not innovating fast, if you're not disrupting your industry, disrupting yourself, I certainly think you will be left behind. And as a business, we certainly have been thinking a lot about what do we need to do in our own business to help us create the shifts. I think one of the greatest positives of COVID-19 is that nothing has shifted digital transformation more than COVID-19. And so as a business that has face-to-face advisors, who now, these advisors couldn't go out and see their customers because of COVID. What does that mean for us in terms of how we accelerate making sure that we give people a channel of choice by offering both virtual advisory services, but also be able to have digital platforms that can help us to capture and stay in touch with our customers across the piece. And so going forward, it is important that we don't just build built-to-last strategies, but we must also build for change, because quite clearly, the world is changing fast around us. And what we've got to do is to develop viable systems models that help us to respond to the ever-evolving environment, external environment, and make sure that we can adapt internally and respond to those as we move forward. And certainly the years of developing 5-year business strategies and business plans, we certainly hold the view that those timelines will become shorter and we will live in this world of agility and really focused on being responsive. And in the spirit of responsive, I think there's kind of 3 main points that I want to land. The first one is that as brands and businesses, we need to move beyond just hearing consumers and really think deeply about, are we really listening? We have a plethora of data nowadays. We have lots of social media listening tools. Consumers are talking to us, but are we really listening? Are we really responsive to their needs, to their desires? Are we engaging with them just because we've got social media? Are we responding to them when they communicate with us on those social media platforms? Because consumers are also not loyal, right? If a consumer wants a product, they go onto 3 different websites for that product and they click on the call me back button. And whoever calls them first, that's the brand that they go with. And so we've got to really make sure that we're attuned to the needs, but we're also able to redesign our narratives, to redesign products based on the insights that we do get from these customers. So the first piece is about really accelerating and amplifying capabilities to listen. It is so important that we are in tune with the lived experiences of people across the markets where we operate. And certainly as a part of that, and from research by Accenture, 2 critical components around listening is this concept of authenticity and transparency. Those are going to be key tenets and ingredients of building brands going forward. And it's quite difficult because typically 20 years ago, brands were not as transparent as they should be. And people put trust in brands that are also vulnerable. The power of vulnerability is also important for brands to stand up and say, we got it wrong, we messed up. And I think there's power in brands also behaving like human beings. And I certainly think that if that's a core part of your DNA, a core part of your brand personality, it will most certainly augur well into the future. So the first piece is about listening, and listening with a sense of authenticity and making sure there's transparency in that. The second piece is about not just telling. Consumers are tired of brands who make promises, who talk about what they stand for, who have lovely and sexy brand positioning messages in the marketplace. But when the moment of truth comes, and COVID-19 called brands out, brands failed to act and failed to deliver on their promise. And so this is the time for brands to deliver on their promises. This is the time for leaders like ourselves to be testing and pushing our organization to say, if we say this, and talking to our executive teams and say, if this is the promise we're making, we've got to make sure that we rally the entire value chain to deliver on the promises that we've made. So acting, leading by example, and looking after your own employees, because employees are critical. You can't make promises in the market, but you're actually not taking care of your own employees. And that's going to be quite a critical piece in terms of how you galvanize internal brand ambassadors in your own organizations to help to make sure that we can be the change that we want to see in the market. Because our employees are also consumers. Our employees also have the lived experiences of the citizens in the markets where we operate. So there's going to be an even greater expectation of brands acting and really making sure they demonstrate their purpose across the piece. All right. And then I think the third thing is about don't just relate, advocate, because that's important. You've got to stand up as a brand and be the change that you want to see in the world. And so it is important for brands to actively play a role and stand and have positions on things that are important across society. And certainly we have seen lots of brands standing up and saying and pushing back against what injustices that they see. And these are important because people are looking for brands that stand up for something and stand up and do something. And so it's not just being sympathetic, empathetic to consumers. It's about proactively advocating for some of the good that we want to see in the world, but also to stand up for issues that are facing society at large, which I think is important. So I think that we can choose to be affected by the things that are happening in the world, or we can choose to affect the future of what will happen. And I guess that's where the difference between brands that are leaders going forward and brands that will be market driven. You're either market driving or you are market driven. And certainly we've got a critical role to play to make sure that we can develop market driving strategies going forward. Because the reality is that COVID-19 has exposed serious challenges across the continent, from health challenges, significant. We've seen weak healthcare systems across the piece. We've seen inaccuracy of data and testing because a lot of people look at infection rates and death rates. But certainly for me, the most important rate is testing rates. How many people are we actually testing? And we've been found wanting in terms of that piece. We've got significant macroeconomic challenges across the continent as a result of COVID. Certainly one of the things that I was asking questions about was about how we work collectively across the continent in our response to COVID. There was no synchronized lockdowns, for example, across all markets. Every country had its own different timing. Maybe there should have been, to make sure that we can curb it and slow it down quicker. So the whole partnership of how we work together as a continent in the free trade, in the areas, economic trade zones, I certainly think are opportunities for us to really think about how we can accelerate and improve that going forward. And then significant social challenges that will result as a consequence of the pandemic, with job losses across the piece. We're seeing serious hunger challenges across multiple geographies. And I certainly think that we will see even greater impact of this unemployment and economic and social instability for quite some time to come. And so this is really the time for all of us to really think about this concept of shared value and how we develop business models that really help us to address the social issues that the continent faces, because I think that's what's going to be important. We can't have businesses that run for profit and, oh, by the way, we've got to try and deal with the social issues. You've actually got to have inherent in the business model mechanisms of dealing with the issues that our society faces across multiple geographies on the continent. And so there's a wonderful TED talk, I'm told the sound doesn't play, of Professor Michael Porter talking about shared value, which is really critical, because I think the more we start talking and having these conversations in boardrooms, the more we can really help to accelerate the shifts that we need to make in our organizations, the connectedness with which our brands need to engage and communicate and be present. I think the faster we'll be able to really curb the outfall and the impact of these three challenges that we face as a consequence of COVID. So the video is talking, and that's Michael Porter talking about business addressing social issues. And I think that's going to be really, really important. So economic value and social value simultaneously is going to be significant. And we've got a massive role to play, because the continent is the last frontier in terms of growth globally. And we've also got to make sure that we give the young people of this continent a future by making sure that we play our role in preserving and protecting and making sure there's a platform for growth moving forward. And so as I close, I just thought I would take the opportunity to also talk about the shifting role of the Chief Marketing Officer and brand leaders in an organization. And quite clearly, the research kind of tells us that the role of the Chief Marketing Officer has fundamentally shifted. I mean, 98% of people interviewed confirm that the role of the Chief Marketing Officer has shifted fundamentally. And it's shifted from the people that just do advertising to be a function and a role that is really focused on driving change and focused on delivering results. So we've got to really make sure that as a community, we are connected to leading our businesses and organizations through change. You have seen the impact of COVID and the impact of ever-evolving external environments, and the Chief Marketing Officer has got to be supporting and helping the organization navigate the change, but also help the organization to be results-driven, making sure that we can deliver that economic value and social value simultaneously as a source of competitive advantage. And that does mean that we have to almost take on multiple hats, almost as the Chief Collaboration Officer, and being able to coordinate and orchestrate across the organization with different C-suite executives in service of really delivering that and driving that impact. There's got to be a massive focus on customer experience and really help making sure that we connect what we say from a brand perspective and how the brand is experienced from a customer experience point of view. There's also a big focus on technology, and we have seen the growth of what they call Chief Marketing Technology Officers. And this means that we've got to play an active role in the technology choices that our organizations are making in order for us to be a lot more customer-centric. And that's been also a big focus point for the evolution of the role of the Chief Marketing Officer. And obviously leading change and making sure that we are connecting the external environment to the internal organizations and make sure that there's congruence between what the organization is trying to achieve with the lived experiences of consumers in the markets where we operate. And then most importantly, or second most importantly, really being an inventor and driving the innovation, because there's never been a more opportune moment than this for us to really think about what innovations can really help us to create the shifts in our brand that we want to see, but also the positive impact that society deserves across the continent. So really great insights from EY in terms of the evolving role of Chief Marketing Officer. But I still say that above all else, most critically, we have got to make sure that we develop commercial savviness as marketers and brand activists to make sure that we are connected to the business. Because marketing and brand strategy takes its cue from the business strategy. And so if we're not focused on how we deliver business value, I think we will render ourselves irrelevant in the organization. And so we've got to make sure that as we recruit, as we develop skills, there's a significant focus on commercial acumen. Because without it, all we'll ever be relegated to are the people that do the t-shirts and the people that do the billboards. And in this world, this ever-evolving and changing world, it is absolutely critical that we are focused on driving business growth. And that's even why the title of the Chief Marketing Officer in companies has shifted to the Chief Growth Officer. We've got to be focused on driving growth for the business, which I think is really, really important. So I think with that, my kind of last takeaway in terms of the presentation is that we have got to play our part as communicators, marketers, and brand activists, and make sure that our brand shows up and delivers on the promises that we make. We've got to act together. I think this is not the time to necessarily be focused on trying to do it alone. The scale and the magnitude of COVID-19 has elevated the importance of strategic partnerships, has elevated the importance of really making sure we partner, not just with the industry, but with government, and even with competitors. The challenges we face are too big for us not to be thinking about those things. We need to be solving instead of selling. And I always talk about shifting from the what, which is products and selling product, to focusing on the why and creating those brand ecosystems. Because what we've got to really do is help to be solving the challenges that people face, and then experiences of people across the markets where we operate. And certainly, gone are the days where we look to the rest of the world for solutions. Solutions for the continent must come from the continent. And I think that we have significant ingenuity and innovation on the continent. We have a vibrant and energizing passion for creativity. And I think that we can take the foreground in terms of coming up with brand ideas and connecting concepts that help us to really bring together this concept of developing business models that help us to address social issues. And so it falls on every generation to be great. And all of us and all of you have got to think deep and hard about the legacy that you will leave behind as you help to lead your families, your communities, your country, the continent forward in this post-COVID-19 era. I thank you. I will leave it there, Tulu.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation. Like Mrs. Bo said, an outstanding presentation. And somebody said, a well-versed facilitator. We all really appreciate this. And Uti says, amazing work from Old Mutual. So thank you so very much. We will be taking questions now. And the first question is coming from Madam Ikwo Uko, who says that, how should brands respond to social issues in terms of what they voice? For example, a lot of brands, many brands have remained mute on the EndSARS issue. And thank you so very much, sir, for actually touching on that. And how would you go about talking on some of those kind of issues?
Thank you for that. I think that these are very difficult issues to navigate, because traditionally we come from a space where businesses and brands are trying to just preserve their growth and their businesses, and they don't want to interfere or try to be seen to be dealing with some of these issues for fear of their license to operate being taken away, as it were. But I think that the world has really evolved. And I think if you are customer-centric, you've got to really be in touch and in tune with the realities of what customers and the people in the markets where you operate are dealing with. And so my suggestion and recommendation always is that companies have got to spend the time thinking about what are their house views, what are their positions on social issues in their markets of operation. So the first thing is to say there are these broad social issues in the market, and we've got to work together as an executive team to have clear positions on where we are related to each of these social positions. Then organizations have got to decide which are the social issues that they want to be vocal about and which are the ones that they actually don't want to be vocal about. So there's got to be an alignment and agreement so that these things are known before these crises or these social issues arise, right? And then I guess there's a piece which talks to the relevance of the category. It does also depend, because sometimes you see a brand involved in an issue and you go, but they're not really even in that category. This doesn't really affect the type of industry that they're in. So there's got to also be alignment between issues that are affected by the category with which you are in. And then I guess the broader umbrella piece is about stakeholder relations and public affairs, because organizations, as a part of their license to operate, need to be having ongoing engagement with stakeholders to make sure that there's healthy relationships, that there is a climate is fertile for those robust conversations, and that brands are given an opportunity to be quite transparent about how, working with stakeholders, we can resolve some of these issues. So that's what I would say, that it's a collaborative approach. Brands have to be connected to social challenges, but companies have got to make sure that they debate and agree what they're going to have strong points of view on and what are the things that they're not going to. But silence is not an option. It falls on a generation to create the change that you want to see. And certainly this is our generation's time to really make sure that we stand up for any type of injustice.
Thank you so much, sir. So silence is not an option, and it would be nice that we all stood up for what we all believe in this generation. Somebody says he's highly inspired. Thank you very much. Great presentation with high substance and simplicity for all to understand. Well done. And somebody asked as well, Nathaniel, can we get this presentation slides? I believe that would have to be agreed, sir.
I don't have a problem.
Okay, fine. So that would probably be sent to everyone at some point. Okay, so that's pretty much what we have in terms of questions and all of that. But thank you so very much, sir. The beginning of a journey, like you said, it's the beginning of a journey of 1,000 miles. And I think we're all getting into it now, and we all have to actually start to, like you say, not only talk the talk, but we have to play our part. Whilst playing our part, we have to act together. And we all have to remember that we need to solve a problem instead of, at the end of it all, we need to be human. Pretty much, that's what you've said to us today. The insights, Dayo Adefina says the insights into the changing roles of the CMO is most instructive. Yes, that was actually very, very instructive for me as well, because you said to us that the CMO now is not only the chief marketing officer, but he's also the chief collaboration officer. He or she is the customer experience officer. He or she is the marketing MarTech chief information officer, as well as the change leader and innovator. So thank you once more again from Anete. His question is, what's the nexus between building strong Africa brands and the challenges of the post-digital age? Did you get that, sir?
Can you repeat that, sorry?
What is the nexus between building strong Africa brands and the challenges of the post-digital age?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's not an either or, right? So you can only build brands in the context of where consumers are going and what consumers want. And so what we are seeing, nobody can deny the impact of digital on all of us. And digital transformation has been further accelerated through COVID-19. And therefore, a key part of your strategy has to be how you align to the customer journey. And we all know that customers start with searching online for propositions. Consumers go online to connect and share with their friends. consumers go online to stand up for social issues. And so you've got to be a brand that is almost digital first. And you've got to develop digital first strategies in terms of capturing greater share of market. And so part of developing strong African brands going forward is about how you create strong brands, strong digital brands that engage and create those ecosystems. So for me, certainly it's not an either or. It's definitely an and. And I think that there are some amazing things from a technology point of view that is happening on the continent that isn't happening anywhere else. And mobile money payments, some of the innovations in agriculture and leveraging agriculture, some of the innovations happening in the medicine space is amazing. What we've got to do is make sure that we're backing that up with strong brand marketing and brand innovation in support of the technology. And I think that those brands that get that mix right are the brands that will gain a greater share of market in the future.
Great. Thank you so much, Sam. So Obum says, how do brands go about navigating government regulations when they have a clear point of view on social issues which are not in alignment with government position? Example of Flutterwave in Nigeria.
Sure. I guess for me, it's not about navigation. It's about, there's a wonderful book. And the book opening chapter starts with, what is the definition of marketing? And then it quotes, the American Association says it's this, the Africa Association says it's that, and it has 20 different definitions of marketing. Then it says, what is the definition of brand? And it quotes all the different definitions of brand. Then it says, what is the definition of PR? And it quotes all these definitions of PR. And then towards the end of chapter 1, it says, confused? And it says, no wonder nobody takes us seriously, because we can't even agree amongst ourselves what we mean by these things. And the chapter ends with a statement that says, if I were an alien coming from out of space, and I looked at the marketing, brand, and PR function, and I asked myself one question: what are they all trying to do? Despite all the definitions, what is brand? What is marketing? What is PR? What are we all trying to do? And he ends the chapter 1 with the statement, I would have to come to the conclusion that we are all in the business of influence. And the name of the book is called The Business of Influence. And so for me, it really is about influence. We have got to make sure that we are playing an active role in influencing regulation in service of what's in the best interest of the customer. We've got to make sure that we are partnering with the people that are drawing up and writing different pieces of legislation, regulation, that we're using our influence on industry bodies so that we're not recipients of things that's written without us, but we are critical inputs into that process. And I think that we sometimes play victim, and I think we've got to play a much more proactive role in making sure that we are in the forefront of influencing that. And that's all got to be driven by what's right and what is in the best interests of the customer and the communities and markets we serve. Because governments will change, but the needs of the people and the reality of their lived experiences remain. And those are the things that we've got to remain true to. So it is a partnership, but it's got to be about making sure that we are driving influence in our markets of operation.
Thank you so much. We're all in the business of influence. The title of the book once more is The Business of Influence, right? Somebody asked that.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Philip Sheldrake is his name.
Yeah, The Business of Influence. Thank you.
Yes.
The name again, sir.
All right.
Sheldrake.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
All right. So, oh, another question. I was about to say thank you.
no. Another question. African, we have 2 or 3 more questions because I'm probably going to round off your session at about 10 o'clock so that we can take on the next set of people who are the advertisers who actually it would be interesting to also hear their point of view in terms of the CMO roles changing. So the question, like I said, is African brands need to harness the free digital diaspora resources. How can the continent do this post-pandemic?
Yeah, I guess, what is also interesting is that there aren't a lot of continental forums for brand activists and communicators and marketers. We kind of have these forums at a country level, whether they be brand councils or marketing councils by country. And I think we need to start organizing ourselves in a way that's aligned to some of the structures that we are seeing at a continental level. And so if I just think about the African Union, what role are we playing and what forums or bodies from a communication and brand point of view do we have that has a set or a group of marketers, brand activists, and communicators that are influencing the agenda of how that, of the decisions that are made at that level? What role have we played to provide a unified response to communications during this COVID? To say maybe there's this template that can be democratized across all markets. So people aren't starting from scratch in every country, which is critical. What role are we playing in all of these discussions around the free trade area, the continental free trade area? Those are the places where we need to really be making sure that we are creating opportunities to provide our points of view and input into how it's positioned, how it's marketed, and some of those benefits that can be derived in terms of social media platforms and the platforms that are important to us in terms of how we will leverage digital technologies going forward. So I am suggesting a call for us to really think about creating forums, opportunities for bodies that can help us to push or influence some of these things that are happening at regional levels as well as at a continental level. We have so much to learn from each other. And that's sometimes what saddens me, that we don't share the great learnings amongst each other in service of efficiency, in service of positioning what we do better, and in service of the communities that we serve. And I think those are lost opportunities.
Great. So what roles have we played to provide a unified response actually for COVID as well as as the free trade? So these are questions we actually need to be answering. Nkiru says that true, Andisa, about continental advocacy groups. There is the African Public Relations Association, a PR advocacy group. Appears we need to do a lot more with amplifying its mandate. And thank you for a great presentation. Amazing and insightful, says Uti. The last question, or 2 last questions. One of them from.
You can tell Nkiru that I'd love to hear more about this continental PR group.
Okay, great. Nkiru, you heard that. He would like to hear more about the continental PR group. So you might want to be speaking with him after this. And then the last 2 questions. One is, what would you say is the one thing that our continent has to do or stop to better position ourselves post-COVID?
Yeah, I think that we've got to be a lot bolder about the things that we do. I think we sometimes look to the rest of the world, and we actually have wonderful things happening on this continent, but we don't tell our story well. And what's most interesting in the story conversation is that the whole concept and the whole notion of storytelling comes from Africa. But we just have this inability to tell the great stories of the great things that we are doing as a fraternity. And we therefore look for international best practice outside of the confines of the continent. And so we've got to really step up and not be very proud of the great work that we are doing. And I think that's one shift, a paradigm shift that says we're not just recipients, but we're actually creators, and not be shy to really express and put on the table the great things that we're doing. So I think that's certainly one thing that I can think can really help us. And then the second thing for me certainly must be that we have got to be commercially connected to our business. Because if we're just the people that do the t-shirts and the people that do advertising, I don't think that we'll be taken seriously, especially given where our businesses are post-pandemic. You've seen the erosion of brand value in the top 100, in the top 150 brands on the continent. And so there's a big job to be done to really regain that lost ground and to regain trust amongst our peers on the C-suite.
Thank you so much. We need to regain traction on that. Things to say about even the answers to the questions. So thank you so much, Andisa. There are still some questions here, but we will have to move on to the next session. Some of these questions, if you're still around, we would like you to still answer them, but we will be moving on quickly to the next section, which is us talking to our advertisers. So thank you so much. Thank you very much for the session.
Thank you for the opportunity, and yeah, take care, everybody. Take care of yourselves, your families. Yeah, and we've got work to do.
A lot of work. Regards to the little man. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Obviously, everyone had very nice things to say, and they were not just nice things. It was because we actually had an insightful session. I pretty much learned a whole lot of things, some of which are questions that we will be putting out to the advertisers as they speak. The panel for our advertising session is made up by a long set. So we have the lead discussant, who is Bumi Adeniba. She's the marketing director of Unilever. Bumi is an experienced marketing professional and commercial operator with a strong bias for using consumer insights and her understanding of an end-to-end manufacturing process to My apologies, I don't know what happened there actually. So we were talking about Bumi. So Bumi Adeniba is an experienced marketing professional and commercial operator with a strong bias for using consumer insights and understanding of an end-to-end manufacturing process to harness value for multiple brand building, innovation, designs, and quality management system. She currently manages the home care division of Unilever across the Ghana and Nigeria market, with responsibility for overall performance of the brands across the division. She also sits on the Unilever home care leadership team for Africa. She is the first vice president of the Advertising Association of Nigeria, ADVAN, and the regional vice president Africa of the World Federation of Advertisers, WFA. Bumi is married and has 3 children. She currently resides in Lagos. On this panel, we also have Emmanuel Ado, who is the marketing director of the Lacasera company. We have Dolapo Otegbayi, who is the Specialized Nutrition Director of Friesland Campina. We also have Baba Awopetu, who is the Senior Strategy and Marketing Director of Tega UK. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. Bumi, you're on now. Your mic is muted.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm just sharing my screen now in just a minute, and then get started. Please let me know when you can start to see my screen. Can you see my screen now?
No, not yet.
Okay, we'll give it a second.
All right.
But I'm sharing already.
Okay, I don't see it.
The Duchess team, you need to please enable my ability to share screen. I'm getting an error message that has been disabled. Technical team, please help me, give me access to share screen. Okay.
You can share your screen.
Yes, I can share now. Please let me know when it's up and you can start to see it.
Are you sharing now?
Yes, I'm sharing now.
Still can't see it.
Sharing now.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with a very interesting cross-section of professionals and experts. And a big thank you to Andisa for the keynote speech that pretty much set a very fantastic context for everything that I'm going to say. For this session, I have 20 minutes, and I will try to prioritize a few key points in the 20 minutes so that we can have conversations. And for that reason, I would avoid double tapping on some of the points that the keynote speaker have done a fantastic job of projecting on. So a few opening thoughts from me, and I like this quote because it's kind of interesting. Every time we talk about a new fad or a new normal, the best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time. We're suddenly not going to wake up and step into the post-digital age. It is what has been happening to us, the things that we've been evolving to over the time. And also very top of mind for me at this point is the current thing that we're having at this tipping point in this country. And I like the challenge that Andisa posed just before he left off, and also to say, what is the voice of the advertiser in this? Opinion, at the point where we're at, silences were complicit. The conversation we should be having is what way do we get involved, than the different arrays of ways we can get involved, whether in influencing the conversation, in being part of the engagement, but that's, we don't get involved in one way or the other, regardless of the format or the structure, is just complicit. And what is driving this? Everything that we can be sharing today, we can quickly jump into conversations of cloud computing, we can jump into big data, we can jump into blockchain. All of these things will be sitting on the most important element, most important critical asset that we have in this country, which is the human capital. And the you people, 80% of a 200 million population, definitely no gainsaying that that is really where the first tipping point of shaping the future comes from. 2 weeks or maybe earlier on, before I started to think about this and all of the answers and police brutality started, it wasn't my most important slide, but today, everything else that we want to say in shaping the future pretty much rests on this. I've got some very simple disclaimers. In 20 minutes is definitely just a thought starter. We would have engagements that will continue offline because we're part of a cohesive community. So there will be no certificate of completion. We can't even exhaust one of it. If we took only blockchain today, we can't even exhaust it in 20 minutes. I would make a couple of references to my own base, which in this case is advertisers, and of course Unilever, which is my core organization as we go on. So he asked one question, whether it's a new normal, next normal, absolute nonsense, every time that we talk about a new age. But I'll take us back just a few steps because a number of the things that I will talk will build on that. Very basic, our economics at the time, when we talk about production phase, 3 elements: man, machine, money. Now, in the context of the changes that we're seeing now, it is still bordering about all those things. What is happening to man in the scheme of things? What is happening to the infrastructure by which we're using to shape the new normal? And then what is happening to the resources that we're putting behind it? And what I've termed or described this as it's not a real life that we have, and then we're taking a little bit of digital. It's actually one that the distinction is dissolving. It's just like today when you ask teenagers in the Western world to say, how many hours do you spend on the internet? Like, we need to then be able to define for them, when does it start? When does it end? Or we ask someone, how much of mobile banking do you do in this current age? Because all you do is majorly now mobile banking in some instances. Therefore, all that is being fused together. And in our structure and approaching this, new technical structures definitely will come to play. And in rethinking everything, and it starts with even our role as CMO, and this has laid a very good foundation for us in redefining our role. And I'll talk some of my opinions on that. This is what I've termed a future-ready business model. And Tolu, this helps me to answer your first challenge, your first question to us, to say, what is our new definition as CMO? Whilst we were preparing this conversation, and I have the headline of a future-fit organization, post-digital age, very clearly, completely aligned. It is not about the digital technologies we embrace. It is not about the infrastructure. It is not about the exponential technology. It's an entire organization that we're designing, and it starts with even reappraising our role. And so I was very pleased when he had those template of what the CMO is, because that's exactly the thought, where it is not somebody has designed the organization and then we're building a model to do marketing or to do branding on it. It is the old, what does it start? What kind of organization are we? Who are the people that will take on this next phase that we want to turn? What is the kind of culture that even helps people to be able to step on this new age and use it to drive engagement? And what are all the digital environment that we create? So when I put it into this mode, there's a study done by Deloitte. Organization, very important what you design, your people, your culture, and until there's a fair balance and a synergy of all these 3 elements, your digital environment or the infrastructure to operate in a post-digital age would be nothing but BOICA. I mean, BOICA acronym, bend over here, it comes again. It will just be one new fact, and then we go on. And then it will be one CEO who has an idea and says to the millennia, can you help me navigate this, different from an entire rewiring of the organization, the way the organization thinks, and the way the organization uses this infrastructure to address consumer problems, consumer pinpoint and delight the consumer, because that's really what it is about. So when I talk about organization, there are 2 ways that I feel we've approached it. There is digitizing and there's digitalization. So digitizing in the case where this is my business model. It doesn't need to change. This is what I've always done. However, I would take on a little bit of digital application and laze it on, and then I would be more open-minded to use digital processes. For lack of a better word, that's the past, literally nothing that is relevant now, as against designing for a completely new digital organization that operates in that new business model, using it to solve its core organization. And the perfect example of this that I wanted to share this morning is what has happened to Fujifilm. I will not draw too much on this, but just as a thought starter, like I said, 20 minutes for me will be thought starter, and I would move on very quickly. Now, let me share the second point, which is all critical in designing the organization, in collaboration. Whilst it may have been relevant for a Fujifilm to turn itself all around a very sound Japanese company, and I recommend anyone who hasn't studied about that organization to do so, while it was easy for them to turn their entire business model on its head, the truth is a number of us have big organizations that have done businesses in multiple countries in certain pattern. And as a fine balance of recognizing this is where I am, this is the gap that I have, but what are the other resources around me that I can harness that helps me to position for this new world so that I'm not the old infrastructure, old elevator that I cannot turn around. That's a fantastic book that I recommend as well. It's New Power. New Power, written by Jeremy Imons and Eric Thames, and it describes the old power value system and the new power value system and how you can navigate and move yourself in navigating a different business model. So I will share the Unilever example. So what we had done is at way back 2013, 2014, realized that in us designing to be able to tap into this new world, whilst we cannot turn our entire business in 190 countries on its head, there are startups who have expertise in all these things. So it became like a solid, well-orchestrated partnership. We call it the Unilever Foundry. And what it does is it opens itself to a number of startups in technology, in advancement, in research across different spheres. We pilot with them, we put our money where our mouth is. Some of all this, there's a venture capitalist arm of the business that sponsors these businesses, sets them up, helps them to develop a plan in 2-3 years, and then we co-create and start to see benefits. Say for a specific example, when we wanted to get into using blockchain for our media advertisement, it wasn't first a conversation of we need to do it now because it's a new reality in managing media, but finding which are the startups that we can partner with, that we can put our investment on and set up. So if a well laid out, there's a brief, there's a pitch, there's a setting up the organization, there's investing in them, and then they start to help us to build this business plan. So far, over 10,000 startups have been worked with across different Unilever organizations, over $20 million investment put there, and it's still an ongoing journey. So it is also a viable model that we can use at different stages of our business in reinventing. Now, this bit second one, I said organization and the people for me. I was going to play this video. In the interest of time, is on the slide, we can pick, but it's a beautiful video by Symmetra. What it talks about is the link between diversity and innovation. Now, not diversity in the way that we have spoken about it, whether in the context of gender or in the context of regional representation, but in the construct of the team when you really want to navigate the future and future organization. Now, so it describes our typical way of having people that we call the I-powers, you know, the I-power player, I-power team. And it says there that what describes the experience or expertise of anyone is a combination of three things that constitute their mental box: is their perspective, is their experience, and is their knowledge of how they do things. So when you bring people of that same set together, you're having a unique overlap, because what it means is the way that they do things, there's a commonality, as against the diversity. This is not your most fantastic person by the regular academic estimation, but as a peculiar way of approaching problem solving. And this research work done by this organization has shown that organizations that started to realize that diversity in the experience, in even the academic prowess, in the numeracy and the creativity, it's one of the critical elements that helps you to birth innovation. I would put a few examples of how certain organizations are now starting to change. So some of us would have caught where Google now says we will not recruit only for degrees, but we will start to recruit specific for skill. And it's also something interesting that for us, where we've had many years of a very precise recruitment policy in the organization, we're now starting to say, if you just have an experience and expertise in coding, part of the startup of the Unilever Foundry that I talked about a few minutes ago is also helping to set up hubs that train people in those specific skills. So where it doesn't necessarily come through the formal education sector, but we've profiled and walked your journey with you, where it is relevant to the state of the business, then we start to build those teams, realizing that in creating that future, the team construct is as vital as this big technological structures that we put there as well. Now, when we envision even the environment that makes these people to thrive, I'm not going to put a lot of emphasis on work from home. I think we've all lived it. But even in how intentional we create the ambience that helps all these innovations to thrive, this idea thinking, might seem something that you would before now leave to maybe the facility, somebody in your facility management, in your HR management organization to figure out. My position now in the new age of the CMO is the kind of ambience that you create for your people who would take that tide of the growth trajectory of the brand becomes even more important. And maybe by the time we finish, we would have found out the 5 things that, and these are called the CMO, potentially could evolve into so many other things, but it's just the reality that this is not just a tactical thing. It's as important as an ambience that really stimulates effective thought processing. And while this is a very popular thing to talk about the culture, feel forward, we tell everyone to try, we tell everyone, don't worry, just learn and feel forward. But it is not, it is beyond just saying it a cliche. Where we don't particularly design the organization and reward people, as abstract as it sounds, to try, and then to say, what have we learned from this process? Then we stifle that ability for people to go and then to try. So there's this graph that talks about the phase of when you're doing the research, there's the uncertainty, but we're trying to get ourselves in clarity until we get to the real way that we want to break through. So it's cultivating that pioneering culture and right mindset for people to design for the future of the organization that we want. When we talk about innovation, this is the slide that I was going to use to answer the question directly. It is not just the product that we bet anymore. So it's the entire process, which I've taken time to describe in how we create the ambience. It's the kind of organization that we set up, and it's the kind of market that we really want to tap. So all of it together, it's just now saying that our job is not done until we've taken a total end-to-end value system. During the introduction, when Tolu was describing that, I said I've done value end-to-end. For me, that's one of the joy of being in a marketing role, where I will say to you, if you ask me to introduce myself, I'm just a happy person that started as a factory girl. So the beauty of knowing the back end of the products, of the value that we put in it and using it to engage the consumer, for me, it's a thing of pride now that I have this experience. So as I start to round up in my timing, and I want to talk about some of the exponential technologies, I've limited it to only 3 in the sense that you have an array of experts that will talk to us on different things. The guardrail for me in choosing these 3 was I wanted to choose 3 that, one, I've felt, touched, experienced, I've been part of it in one way or the other, so I can speak to. And the third one for me is also one that is relevant for us in the current day advertising organization in Nigeria to solve a compelling industry issue. So while there is this array of digital infrastructure that a number of us are very conversant with, I would not attempt to gloss over them because we are. Internet of Things, big data, blockchain, cloud computing, and we use them in one way or the other. I would explain some of the ways that we use them. I will focus on 3, like I said, and I will say what I think should be our new thought. Now, Internet of Things, my experience, personal experience for it was actually a business meeting in Shanghai. And I saw a full display of a Samsung Play where the interconnectivity of all of their brands was set up in a way that the refrigerator can trigger an order, and then you have a replenishment from Alibaba, and then your washing machine can start your Uber at the time that you program it, and all these devices playing together. I remember standing in the middle of that trade fair setting and saying, so where do we play as brands to use this technology? Of course, I manage the home care division for Unilever, and it is at the point of a few things I've spoken about, collaboration, partnership, where some of the washing machines were designed specific to use some of the detergent powders that we have and trigger and order a replenishment linked to our own backend of our route to market. So imagine if we came at the end of the process where this whole setup had been done, they had finished the design, they had finished the programming, and we say, oh, by the way, we want to partner with you. We're late to the table. So it is taking a meet, like the Venn diagram, at the point of when is the conversation starting, where do I position my brand, and is my own organization design ready to accommodate this? If the manufacturer we partnered with at the time in this Shanghai business fair that I was describing, if they were even willing to say, okay, we'll do business with you, we will link an order replenishment to your system. If we didn't have the backend system where we had worked with those startups that I described, that helped us to have a route to market that was digital and could replenish and then connect to a supplier and deliver to that person, we've also missed out on the opportunity. So the major point I want to land on this is know the start of it as advertisers, as marketing people, and at what point exactly do we plug in. So smart window, some people have also called it free digitalization. So it's a fusion of the physical and the digital, where I can just go in there. Somebody has their hand raised, but I can take it after the conversation. I can go in there, have it's a digital window shopping. I don't necessarily have to have the time, and then I have the experience brought back to me. So number of brands are already playing in here. So it is right here on the waiting for us to tap into. The final one of the top three that I said I wanted to talk about is blockchain. And I will take just one minute or thereabout to explain my understanding of blockchain, literally block in the chain. And it works on three major things. It works on the data that you've put in it. It works on what is called the hash. Hash in this case, consider hash like a fingerprint, which is exclusive. The same way that a fingerprint, you can have a multiple. So you've got the hash for each data set, and then you've got the hash from the previous box. Then it works on two things of it's immutable. We agree metrics of what we would all work on, and it is distributed to everyone. So every one of us in that block of data, as in an instant one part of it is changed, which is the hash in this case, it invalidates everything. It invalidates all of the nodes on the back end of the block, such that the hash connector of block 1 to block 2 already calls into question that something that's changed and invalidates that contract. Now, where has it become useful for us, or where it becomes relevant for us as advertisers? In all of the things that we're agitating about today, where we talk about transparency in media buying, audio measurement, this here solves it. Because what does it do? It brings all of us together as partners. We have agreed metrics, and that's why blockchain is usually described as having immutable metrics. We have agreed metrics, which sometimes aggregates to say the resources is where else here. Until this set of conditions are met and delivered, the resources does not move from here to here. Again, because I talk about the distribution for each it works, every player has the same visibility on all of the blocks and all of the nodes, such that if there's a change, you see at that time. So it's been used to help in transparency. It's been used to cut out the middlemen in some instances where they're false, they're not relevant. It would help us to solve the issues around who is really consuming my material advertisement. Am I serving real humans, or I'm serving to bots? And so this one is one recommendation that is up here for us on the ticket. Should we leave this conversation and have had very interesting discussions, or we get up and say, how do we use blockchain and kick it off to solve some of the conversations we're having on the lead payments, visibility to audience measurement, and all of the conversations that are ongoing? I move here and I say all that we've talked about, whether we go cloud computing, we do Internet of Things, and we do blockchain, they would all be fancy things to do. I would have the badge of honor to say we're a very forward-looking organization, but this is really what it's about. It's about the user experience. And in the earlier session, and Lisa talked a lot about this as well, which is a common convergent point of everything we do, if it is not addressing the reason why we're here, why we're meeting the expectation of the consumer at every single point of the design, it is nothing but a fad in actual sense, because we have not designed it to be able to meet the pain points that we want to solve. So this here for me is the most critical thing. And then I say, what can we start to do from now? If we wanted to have the conversation, and it's not just that we've had 20 minutes, or depending on how long we have this entire engagement with the advertisers, what should be the few things that I say we should all take out of here? First thing for me is upskilling. both the organization and individuals. Now, my Shanghai experience bettered a number of personal training for me, because I saw all these world that was being described in real life. I felt it. 5G, everything that we were talking about right there, the way all of the equipments were interlocked. And I knew that if as a marketer in Nigeria, I needed to start to deploy all these things, if I did not understand this thing for myself and how I can explain it to benefit the consumer, then it will be nothing but just another, I've been part of an investment conversation. So according to McKinsey, over 30 to 40% of workers in developed countries may need to upgrade their skill at one point. We don't need to wait till that time. My earlier quote, the future starts one day at a time. So both the organization and individuals must upskill. Now, aggregate is also one thing. We have a lot of data points. Before we even talk about big data points, talk about the very informal data, the humongous informal data that we have. When you go and talk to the consumer, when we have consumer immersion, when we go for shopping visits and we're basically just observing, those are all data that we have not even aggregated. Then as an entire universe of advertisers, there's a lot of data sitting in financial services. There's a lot of data about how people are using their car. There's a lot of data about people who are buying airtime that could be aggregated. Now, the way that commodities are being traded is how some clients are already trading data. So some of us will already know that Shanghai has a data exchange where it is the same, everyone pulls in together this same data, and then you subscribe to it, and then it benefits your entire industry. So again, this is also something that from an industry point of view, we should not start to have a conversation that how do we aggregate, realizing that data indeed is a powerful currency that we have. Pilot, we can never say that enough. I talked about the culture of learning, feeling forward, but piloting, working with small startups, starting our journeys with them, and then let's profile partners at an industry level. Whilst sometimes when we have these conversations around blockchain, around cloud computing, it looks like things that are far, but right here, we have a lot of organizations that are already starting up and working towards this. So my final point is also that this is not just one other new fad. Ben, over here it comes again. We've jumped on a new terminology, and then we're trying to figure it and force feed it into our organization, but that in the true essence of it, it serves the consumer. It addresses what they want. My final slide, this is what it all boils down to, in however way that we personally interpret it, in feeling the pulse of the consumer. What is it that makes us to delight? How do we create those magic points for the consumer in their experience? What is their pain point? How do we get their discomfort? And then we're using this technology to solve for their discomfort. And more than any time in the past, this is where we really are putting our head to the chest of the consumer and saying, what are they saying? And listening intently. Now, social media has all of its goodness of where we're dropping content, we're posting content, but there's a powerful one about social listening that I say to people that there's a lot in just having a structured social listening to use to garner insight. What is the next trend of innovation that I need to be breathing? And those are structured way of really putting our head on the chest of the consumer. And so on this point, I will pause in the interval to just say, yes, future fitting our organization, there are structural things of how does the organization, the people, the culture, and the digital infrastructure comes together to achieve one point, which is to delight the consumer.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, from the guest speakers, from his presentation, he gave us 3 things that as brands we should be doing. We don't just hear, we listen. We don't just tell, we actually act. We don't just relate, we advocate. And based on almost everything we see here, we can see that obviously, you're not just the CMO, you are also a change leader, you are an inventor, you are also the chief information officer as well. Take out from you is, as individuals and organizations, we need to upskill, we need to aggregate data. What are we using the data as we have it? What are we using it for? Is actually the new currency. Pilot, innovate or die. I mean, that was also something that Andisa had said. He said, innovate and disrupt yourself. You need to disrupt yourself, your industry, or else you'll be left behind. And that's pretty much the same thing that you're saying to us. You also need to profile your partners in terms of collaboration, as well as user experience, your eyes on the ball, so it doesn't become another Boha, bend over, here it comes again. Thank you so much. We will be taking questions. If we don't have the questions now, we'll move on to Emmanuel Agu, who will also be presenting to us. So thank you so much, Bumi. It was a fantastic presentation. And this also said the same thing. He said fantastic. Ada says great presentation, and somebody is asking for the audio recording. So thank you very much. Please wait, because we might have questions directed at you after all the other sessions. So Emmanuel, we will be moving on to Emmanuel Agu now. Emmanuel Agu is the Group Marketing Director of Jotna Nigeria Limited, a group of companies which comprises the Lakasera Company PLC, a leading beverage company, Prima Corporation. They are manufacturers of preforms and caps in West Africa, NG Pet Manufacturing Co., which produces the most consistent quality of food-grade bottle resins, and Gillon Group, a global distributor of raw materials. A vast and versatile experienced professional, the marketing whiz kid has brought to bear his very deep knowledge and very diverse exposure to be on the management of an array of brands, including Lakasera Apple Drink, Smooth Chapman, Bold Bitter Lemon, Nevara range of water, premium table water, soda water, and tonic water, just as he led his talented marketers to develop and build iconic brands and deliver high growth plans against key priorities. With almost 2 decades experience in consulting and FMCG, is a well-rounded business and commercial leader with a strong track record across brand communication, experiential strategies, portfolio profitability, insight generation that have delivered strong ROI on cutting-edge innovations and high-performing team leadership. Welcome, Emmanuel, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Tolu, and thank you everyone that is on this call. Please permit me to stand on the existing protocols, to Andisa, to Bumi, our Advent President, and to the rest of the panelists that are on this call. So welcome everyone. And the IT guys, I want to share my presentation. If you can give me the right to put up my presentation, that would be great.
You're sharing now, sir.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, but I'm not sure you're showing anything yet, but yes, we can see your screen.
Yes, I've shared my screen. I've set it on. So I don't know whether people are seeing it.
Yes, we can see, but you need to, you haven't opened on the actual presentation.
I've opened the presentation.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because we're viewing your screen, but we can't see the actual presentation.
I've opened it. Oh. Can you still see it?
We can see it now.
You can see my presentation now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So let's go. So a lot have been said by Andisa and by Bumi, and the spirit is pretty much the same. But in my presentation, I want to take us through some real hard truth and then some practical ways by which we can make our business future fit in this post-digital age challenge. Okay. Why do we have to make our business future fit? Reason number one are that the barriers to entries are disappearing across the globe. And then this is not far-fetched because we know that the world has become a global community. So the barriers are disappearing very fast. The second one is that the disruptors are being disrupted. When we look at brands and see what is happening in the marketing space, you will see that there are rapid changes of brands disrupting a category and then again getting disrupted. Reasons why we need to feature fit our business. The world is becoming borderless and porous through the internet. Globalization is a new globalization. And what this means is that the continued integration of global economy via trade, financial and other flows will significantly witness slower pace, causing large businesses and sophisticated supply chains across the world to plan for a variety of scenarios. Consumer knowledge is on the increase. Even the Holy Book said that in the last days, knowledge will increase. But then come to think of it, the thoughts of the youth in the coming years may be completely different from what it is now. Knowledge and sensitivities of the consumers are on the increase. Everything matters to the consumers. Gone are the days that they are likely to be taken for granted, or that they are likely not to be interested in reading even your nutritional information on your labels and checking out your best before dates. They know what's up, and they follow global trends per minute and even per second. New players are breaking the rules. Prior to now, everybody knows that one of the best video sharing platform is Skype. But at the onset of pandemic, Zoom and even Google Hangout took the center stage. Protectionism on the rise. We all know the issues around TikTok ban in America, Trump and China, and even Prime Minister Modi of India that have also banned TikTok in India. And TikTok is also having an issue in Pakistan. So why are countries protecting the interests of their local businesses? And this, we need to also think about it as we look at measures to future fit our business. Yes, at the end of the day, Trump was able to get Oracle to have a significant shareholding in TikTok before TikTok could be allowed to operate in America. What kind of business do you run? And what is your international reach and scope? And what could be the potential hindrances to getting into international space? Because government of nations are doing everything humanly possible to protect their local industry. Regulatory oversight is on the increase, and then we need to watch this. What does it take to future-proof your business? I have 9 pillars that I listed here, but that does not mean that is exhaustive in all. But just as I thought about this topic, I listed these 9 pillars that I think are strong pillars for future fit business. And then they are innovation, technology, big data analytics, digitalization, multiple business models, consumer experience, anticipative organization, evolving culture, learning and development. So I get into technology. Technology, we know, enhances capabilities.
Yes, Paul, just to add on what George said, as we start now with
There's a noise at the background, please.
in Nigeria in terms of security awareness to the business and to the CD teams.
IT, can you help me mute the person that is talking on the background?
To do the same both countries in terms of
Technologies enhances capabilities. Technologies like artificial intelligence, cloud, and automation enables companies to quickly adapt to changing consumer preferences. Analytics can predict when a customer may order a product, enabling retailers to forecast demand in specific areas so they can stock accordingly. In future-proofing, our business technology will play a great role. And then technology maximizes efficiencies across operations. Even sensor-based technology allows retailers to track products across the supply chain and throughout physical stores. It allows for greater agility across operations. It enables businesses to react fast in the face of changing consumer demand. So integrating technology into retail operations can reduce shipping, inventory, supply chain costs, while improving delivery times and customer satisfaction. Then I step to pillar number 2, innovation. Businesses need to constantly innovate in order to survive and pre-propose themselves for the future or risk being left behind. And in order to be successful at innovation, brands and businesses must adopt solution-based innovation philosophy, targeting the winning zone and avoiding the losing, dumb, and dangerous zones, as you can see from the chart on the screen, and this was taken from the book by Graham Robertson called Beloved Brands. Then you look at the maximize blue ocean opportunities and redress red ocean gaps through renovation. And what do we mean by this? The blue ocean is a wide space opportunity in innovation, and while the red ocean is a cluttered space. But oftentimes, brands, because of inability to take risk, hardly ventures into the blue ocean space, and they all get cluttered into the red ocean. And I'm not saying that red ocean is not good, but if you must get into the red ocean, it must be to readdress the need of the existing brands in those red oceans through renovation, while you target the blue ocean space. And this has been the innovation philosophy of the Lakasera brands. When we launched the Apple product in Nigeria, there was no Apple CSD in Nigeria. It was a philosophy of targeting the blue ocean space. We came in with the Smooth brand, blue ocean space, and then we also launched the Ginger CSD, blue ocean space. But that also does not mean that we don't play in the red ocean. But if we need to put our brands in the red ocean, we must create a compelling need that it must serve, that the existing brands within this red ocean space were not serving. So it becomes a veritable tool that if we must innovate, we must look at the wide space opportunities that exist in the blue ocean and then redress the issues that are causing customers and consumers dissatisfaction in the red ocean through renovation. In innovation, please try and target to be in the first or second innovation space within a category. Either the category is new or old. Experience has shown that the first and second brands that gets into a new category or defines a category ends up owning those categories, except if they are being challenged by compelling technologies or by compelling innovation practices by the third comers. And I give you an example. When you work in a business that I work in, which is the carbonated soft drink space, when you want to talk about the cola flavor, you talk about Coca-Cola, you talk about Pepsi. When you want to talk about the orange flavor, you talk about one and you talk about the other. Hardly do you see innovation brands that comes into the third space making a headwind. And reasons why you need to target the blue ocean and become a category leader rather than getting into a cluttered space where you'll be playing a catch-up. And this always happens in such a way that if you need to be in the third position within a category or within a flavor space, you must have a compelling need or must have the ability to outwit either the first or the second for you to be relevant in that space. Innovation must be executed flawlessly with speed and scale. Oftentimes what you see today in the marketing space is when a company comes up with a great innovation, either because of poor execution, either because of not scaling the innovation space, then they end up losing the franchise to another organization or another brand that can accelerate the innovation with speed and scale. So it becomes important that when you have a winning innovation brand and you are out there to launch it in the market space, you need to execute flawlessly and then with speed and scale. Then I get into the third pillar, big data analytics. Bumi has talked about big data. Anderson has also talked about it. But when you look at the big data analytics, you figure out completely that data and analytics must be at the core of strategic decision making. And then the disruptive forces of data science, cloud computing, machine learning, tech startups, data proliferation, automation defines this space. And I tell us, before the arrival of the information age, the only way to get insight from people is to ask them questions. Now those things are changing fast with the advent of tools and approaches that are more effective, like I've just mentioned. These tools are very effective in determining consumer behavior and their footprint within the digital space. So for a business that wants to be future fit, you must invest in data and in big data analytics. Consumer data and creativity must fuse together to drive future business. One thing is good to have the data. Another thing is, how do you make good use of the data to fuel creativity that will bring the data to life in such a way that it will make meaningful sense to the consumers out there? And that is why I'm saying here, consumer data and creativity must fuse together to drive future business. Data on its own is not 100% foolproof. There must be an element of creativity that will make sense to the data that we have. Creative solutions must be inspired by human truth that comes from data. So the era of shooting in the dark, the era of sporadic marketing is gone. Your solution must be inspired by human truth that comes from data. Then again, businesses with empowered market intelligence team will get ahead in the future. This is a no-brainer. How empowered is your consumer marketing intelligence team in your office? How much investment are you putting behind research and research infrastructures and resources that needs to get you ahead in the future? You can have a Lone Ranger in your department and you want to future-proof your business. Businesses with empowered market intelligence team will always predict the future, if not with the exactitude of a Jewish prophet. Digitalization is my fourth pillar. And what are we talking about here? Embrace digital platforms and innovators. Again, because the amount of cross-border data that flows has grown 45 times larger since just 2005, and is projected to increase by an additional 9 times over the next 5 years, as flows of information, searches, communication, video, transactions, and intra-company traffic continue to surge. In addition to transmitting valuable streams of information and ideas in their own right, data flows enable the movement and reach of goods, services, finance, and people. Virtually every type of cross-border transaction now has a digital component. Finance and people. Currently, about 15% of the global goods is conducted via international e-commerce, which much of it is driven by platforms such as Alibaba, Amazon, eBay, Flipkart, and Rakuten. So how much are we embracing digital platforms and innovators in future-proofing our business? Invest and experiment with artificial intelligence, digitalization, and other emerging technologies. Bumi talked about this. I don't have to overflow this, but digitalization is becoming a new trend in the world today. And that is clearly the trying to merge the experience of online experiences with virtual experiences with physical presence. How much are we investing in emerging technologies in our various businesses if we really need to future-proof our business? Build the right digital infrastructure. How many of the companies in Nigeria specifically have the right digital infrastructure? Social media, listening and monitoring tools. When I was working in Heineken, we have what we call the Radian 6. And Radian 6 is a whole component set of digital devices through which you can monitor what goes on in the online space per minute per second basis, with the exception of what goes on in WhatsApp. You can pick at minute basis what people, consumers, trade partners are saying about your brand and move on immediately to mitigate if what you're picking from the online signal is bad about your brand. How much do we have in terms of setting up the right digital infrastructure to understand what is going on in the future and to future-proof our business? Very important. Most companies do not have the solid basis or the right digital infrastructure to network some smart technologies and make meaningful use of new technology-based models of interaction. Companies have to adopt their existing IT infrastructure substantially, or in some cases, implement entirely new infrastructure solutions. The aim is not to superimpose new smart solutions and technologies on top of the existing structure, but to carefully evaluate what needs to be created from scratch as a greenfield project, and where change can build on existing systems and network. Consumer experience. Mrs. Bumi Adeniba has talked about this, consumer experience. And then the question would be, What are we doing as brand marketeers to make sure that the brands that we are selling, we are giving the consumers the right consumer experience through compelling marketing combined with exceptional experience that will reinforce brand choice and generate loyalty, advocacy, and greater customer lifetime value. Delight your existing users through experience if you want to keep them in the bag as the future draws near. Reach out to future users and establish your meaningful difference now. There is no better time than now. Create salience with meaning. Plan your brand activation to create salience with meaning among current searchers and among shoppers, if you want to tag them along as we step into the future. Then my pillar number 6, multiple business model. If you have to future-proof your business, you must create multiple business models. It is a no-brainer. We all are aware of the recent announcement that was made by Julius Berger not less than 3 weeks ago, that they are also going into agro-processing. This is a construction company that are also divesting into agro-processing. As the issues of Forex, recession stares at our face, as the issues of inflation, as the companies continue to go into cycles, you need to future-proof your business by adopting multiple business models. If Julius Berger can go into agro-processing, we need to think about this in our various businesses. Growth in future businesses requires the pursuit of multiple business models. Another second example of the people who has also moved into the space are 7UP Bottling Company. At the onset of pandemic, a carbonated soft drink company moves into the production of hand sanitizer because the sanitizers we have in the market today are purely generic, unbranded, with nobody being sure of how much alcohol by volume is supposed to have. Even though the standard percentage of alcohol by volume should be 70%, the unbranded sanitizers we have in the market today could not give people the confidence that they are using the right sanitizers to protect themselves against COVID. 7UP saw the white space opportunity and they went into the production of sanitizer. And I can tell you, you will see it on every table, on every point in every business today. Be bold with new innovation approaches. Create intentional flexibility for new business models to thrive. Xerox is also in this wing. From the word copy machine, they are also moving, they also have divested into medicine and drugs. And all this is to keep their business going. If you need to future-proof your business in the times to come, you need to embrace the multiple business model approach. And then I move into the anticipative organization, my pillar number 7. And what is all this? Build fluid and collaborative structures to respond to the forces of the future. How collaborative are we in our different organizations? Do we build a system that is collaborative, or is our system built on conflict? I have equally learned in my career that conflict is also a system of management. But I can tell you collaboration is much more better. So how do you build fluid and collaborative structures to respond to the forces of the future? It is very important for business that want to survive in the post-digital age challenge. Remove internal barriers and build internal bridges. Break down every silo mentality that exists in your organization and be open to innovative approaches and changes. Break down silos and destroy internally imposed bureaucracies. There are some companies today that to get a paper signed off will become so difficult that even when you finally get it signed off, the opportunity in the marketing space has been overtaken. And because businesses have set up silos and have even created internally imposed bureaucracies amongst them, that makes it very difficult for them to be flexible, for them to be agile, and then for them to be innovative. Future businesses breaks down silos and destroys internally imposed bureaucracies. Pillar number 8, evolving culture. How much can we say about this? How do we rewrite our culture script to be more open, to be more evolving, to be more flexible, and to be more innovative? COVID-19 has taught us a lot of lessons, that those things that we think are impossible are very, very possible. Who would have thought in Nigeria today that most multinational companies and people working can actually work from home? So what are those ancient culture that we imbibe in our organization that we need to rewrite, that we need to create an openness? We need to force ourselves to be more evolving, to be more flexible, and to be more innovative in our approaches. What are the no-go areas that will never happen? This is not how we do our things. This is how the structure of this business has been since 1960. This is how the MDs of this company have run this company before now. Things are changing. The world is changing. We need to rewrite our script. We need to be more open. We need to be more evolving. We need to be more flexible. We need to be more transparent, and we need to be more innovative if we want to survive the future. Search and spin global best practices and adapt where applicable. The world is a global village. When we heard about the outbreak of pandemic in China, how long did it take to get into Nigeria? How do we search and spin global best practices and adapt where applicable? Yes, I do understand that sometimes because of our nuances and our cultures and our values, global marketing templates rarely survive in Nigeria. And that is because we do copy and paste versus search and spin and then adapt practices that suit our local nuances in such a way that we get the global value and then use it to create local experiences that will also be valuable to our consumers at home. Businesses that want to be future-proof in the future will look at global practices, not to copy and paste, but to adapt where necessary and where applicable. Encourage diversity in strategic decision-making. The decision you make about your brand today in Nigeria have diversity influence. Gone are the days when you said, oh, I can do what I want to do. I can manage my brand the way I want to manage it. Social media, new media has made it very possible that what you do today can be seen and can be heard world over. And how do we also encourage diversity in our strategic decision making? Do we make decisions here for Nigerians alone, or do we make decisions having the world view at heart? Global businesses that wants to survive this 21st century age encourages diversity in their strategic decision making. And then the last pillar, learning and development. Encourage exchange programs for cross-fertilization of ideas. If you run a business in Nigeria and you never had a time to encourage your members, especially if you are working in a global business, to have an exchange programs or to even go for advanced programs abroad, to study what is going on in the world, search and spin, take information from the global stage, and then breed and cross-fertilize the ideas locally. I'm sorry, you are not getting your business prepared for the future. So future businesses that wants to survive must encourage exchange programs for cross-fertilization of ideas. And future businesses must also improve human capital development in STEM skills, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I'm not here to discredit some of the courses that we still have around, but I know that the businesses of the future will focus in some courses like computer information systems, artificial intelligence, robotics, data science and business analytics, management information system, digital and social media marketing, and of course, the marketing that we're doing. We're all part of the business of the future.
Yes.
So we are not ruled out.
Yes.
So organizations should improve human capital development in STEM skills to be able to future-proof their business post-digital age challenge.
Yes, sir.
And then the last slide, hire creative and agile thinkers and fire non-performers super fast. You have no business with non-performers. They erode shareholders' equity. No emotions. Once you dictate them in your team, don't just fire super fast. And make every attempt to get the right creative and agile thinkers in your team. A team is as good as some of the total of the people that makes up the team.
Yeah.
We cannot afford to erode shareholders' confidence in our business by tagging along friends and relations and tribal sentiments in recruitment, getting people that are not fit for purpose. We need to hire men and women who are ready to soak their feet on the mud and get the job done. Now, this is the word from Stephen Elop. The consequences if we fail to do the right thing. And what did he say? We didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. This is the CEO of Nokia. And I said, he did something wrong. He did not make his business future fit. He did not predict the future. He dwelled on the present circumstance. He did not anticipate the future, and that is why he lost. May this not be our portion as we lead our various businesses, that once a burgeoning business, today will become something that when we look back and we said, oh, if we had known, if we had predicted the future, if we have created the future, if we have done the right thing, we would have kept this business selling. We didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. Former Nokia CEO Stephen Elop. This should not be the case of every member of this webinar that is leading businesses. And then on a closing note, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Thank you very much for this great opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was a serious opportunity to learn, relearn, and keep on learning. It then brings us back to pretty much what everybody has been saying. We need to give back tangible value. We need to solve cultural tensions, and we need to be committed to lived experiences so we cannot be walking in silos. Thank you so much for the 9 pillars that you've talked about. There are a lot of questions, but before we take those questions, sir, we will move on to Mr. Baba Awopetu. So please, Mr. Emmanuel Agu, please stay behind so that you can answer some of the questions that was put up to you. But we are taking up some of the time for Mr. Awopetu. So we'll move on to Mr. Awopetu, Baba Awopetu right now. So Baba Awopetu is a passionate business leader with expertise in transforming sales and marketing functions to drive growth. He possesses an instinctive ability to identify the drivers in complex markets and development strategies and actions to turn them into profit. His experience in B2B, B2C, and multi-channels across sectors, including life science, pharmaceutical, medical device, nutrition, healthcare, and consulting services. The marketing expert is very effective at motivating, inspiring, and engaging people to deliver stellar growth. Mr. Awopetu's professional trajectory has seen him being the group strategy and marketing director, CMO, and UK sales and marketing director of Tigral Eye Healthcare. He was also the marketing director, EMEA, Lightcare Microsystems, a world leader in microscopes and scientific instruments. As the head of marketing, OTC Nutricia, a company that specializes in the delivery of advanced medical nutrition for all, Mr. Awopetu conducted feasibility study, developed and implemented plan for the first Alzheimer's OTC solution among many professional accomplishments and positions he has held in various global firms. Thank you very much for joining us today, and you're welcome, Mr. Awopetu.
Thank you for the opportunity. I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes.
Well, first to say is that when I was approached about the opportunity to participate in this summit, the first thing that struck me was that I had to quickly accept, because it was going to be a great opportunity to learn and to gain some insights. Just a little bit, my experience and my passion in marketing goes back a couple of decades, and I have particular interest in segmentation and diffusion of innovation across various markets. On the specific topic of innovation, very recently I was speaking to a head of digital for a major pharmaceutical company, and he was telling me about some of the challenges they were having with digital and innovation across the world that they were observing. And he mentioned to me about a particular incident in China where, due to disintermediation and e-pharmacy, how that was impacting the way pharmaceutical organizations were able to engage with consumers, because the intermediary had got strong control of the consumers. But what really caught my attention was a second example that he shared, which he said that in France, that when they were sharing innovation in digital, they talked about some innovation with regards to mobile payment. And he made a point that what fascinates him is that this is something that on the continent and in Nigeria that had been well in play well over a decade ago, and which served as a reminder that whilst there's a lot of innovation across the world, there's much innovation for the world to learn, both in terms of the way that we serve and engage consumers in Africa and in Nigeria in particular. I've titled my presentation Back to the Future, partly because I just wanted to give a slightly different reflection on this topic about how do we manage the future. Typically, when we talk about the future and the changes that we're facing, we often talk about the concept of the boiling a frog, of the fact that change can happen so slowly that we don't notice it until it's too late. And perhaps the comment that Emmanuel closed with about the Nokia CEO maybe resonates a bit there. But the event that we faced recently with COVID, combined with the acceleration we had already towards digital transformation, perhaps doesn't offer any of us the opportunity to use the boiling frog analogy as a reason of not realizing that our world is changing. So clearly, we know that change is coming and we know the world is changing. The question is, what do we do about it and how do we manage it? So typically it's said that the best way to manage and survive change is to be able to adapt. And adaptability is a well-known factor when it comes to what we need to do in order to be able to manage change and in order to be able to take the advantages that change offers. This is important because, of course, when